Now, man, these pussy niggas putting money on my head. Go on and get your refund, for the fucker, I ain't dead. I'm the diamond in the dirt that ain't been found. I'm the underground king and I ain't been crowned. When I rhyme, something's...
And we're back!
You're between two dumbbells. I'm your host, Skip Hill, and I'm bringing over 40 years of bodybuilding experience to the table, including over 24 years of online coaching. I'm joined today by Dr. Marv, also known as the Educated Meathead. This show can't work if one of us is not super smart. For each show, we posit a thought about a training exercise or training methodology, and then we deep dive into the minutia. We might argue and debate, or we might agree and tell each other how smart we are. At the end of the discussion, we both decide if we smash or pass the topic of the day. Of course, we'll also be doing another segment of Intimate Time with Skip and Dr. Marv, and then we'll finish, as always, with a few listener questions, which are typically, though not always, related to a past show. Remember, every time you comment on the show on YouTube, you'll be included in a drawing at the end of each month to receive a Team Skip t-shirt of your choosing from the teamskip.com store, and you'll receive Dr. Marv's online bodybuilding anatomy course. The more times you respond, the better your chances of winning. We'll post the winner for the month on my Intense Muscle IG account, and we'll also reach out to the winner via your YouTube account. All right, I'm going to take a posit. You good with that?
Yep.
Okay, I posit these 3 exercises that you should be doing and almost certainly aren't for delts.
Performance chiropractic and sports medicine in the Houston Bay Area, telemedicine and nutrition coaching all over Texas. And if you're not in Texas, don't worry. You still do consults through the educatedmeathead.com, where you also find workout programs, seminar recordings, and online courses.
I'm gonna start with number 1. You know me. I'm not gonna give all 3 at once. And that's gonna irritate at least a few people. Well, I just want those 3, and I don't know why he makes us wait. I want him to spoon feed me this information. I want to start with the cable crossover side lateral. And the reason that I'm doing that is a couple reasons, 2 main reasons. Number 1, I've always said, and I believe strongly, that it's important to hit the side delt from a myriad of angles. So it's important to hit all the delt heads from a myriad of angles, but the side delt even more importantly, and it's been a very limiting factor for me because I have shoulders this wide. I said it a million times. I'm going to continue to say it because it's the reality. So I've had to work extra hard to find ways to put meat on the side of my shoulders. Doesn't help either because I don't have a tiny little waist. So that shoulder to waist ratio, the more I can get on my shoulders, anybody, the more that ratio is going to, be more flattering. So I take it off of my waist and my midline, but I'm still wide hipped. So I don't want to do, I don't want to look like I go straight up and down, even though I kind of do. So the cable crossover to me, and the first variation that I want to focus on is this seated one, but you don't need to really be seated. The reason I'm seated is because that essentially brings the pulleys up a little bit higher. And I think that when people watch this exercise, they're going to be like, oh, that's a rare delt movement. So I have both angles. I have it, from the side and, a little bit from the front angle too. But the angle is a little misleading in the sense that, yes, it's side delts, but more importantly, it's the rear portion of the side delt that I'm trying to focus on. And I believe strongly, and I figured this out with myself. So if I have mediocre genetics and I'm struggling with this, I'm sure that a lot of other people are too. The typical side lateral hits the side delts real hard, but it does tend to hit the middle to the front portion of the side delt. Most of us have this gap. We don't necessarily see it, but if we could put more meat on that side, but basically in that area between the rear delt and the side delt, but still on the side delt, it just rounds out the shoulders so much more. And there's almost if you're not doing these angles, there's almost a missed opportunity to really put some meat in that area. And this is one of those joints. It's a multi-angle joint. So it's not like a bicep where do a curl, it's going to hit the bicep. You can hit this muscle, the side delt, all the delts, from so many different angles, much like back. So you want to take advantage of that variety and take advantage of those angles. So the seated, and you'll see it here, it's a backward pull that does involve the rear delts a little bit. You'll get a little bit of blood in there, so it may seem a little misleading, but what's cool is when you hit a couple sets of these, you're going to be like, oh man, that pump is different. It is in my side delt, but it's different. And you're going to feel it the next day. And who really, when they train side delts, it's not like a muscle that gets ridiculously sore the next day. It's not like legs where you don't want to go up and down the stairs, or you go to sit down and you're like, ooh, I'm toast. It doesn't usually feel like that. You almost have to kind of look for the soreness to find it in the delts. So I'm going to hand this exercise off to you in the sense that I'm asking you, anatomically, tear me up. Good,
Yep.
bad, smash, pass, that sort of thing.
So not half bad, Skip. Not half bad.
Mm.
Yep. Or that'll do, pig. That'll do. So, like delts, chest, and lats in particular are like the most complicated muscles to train because of the shape of the muscle. So yeah, you do have to hit them from a variety of angles. I think delts and chest are a lot more complicated than lats, but it's still the shape of the muscle. You're going to have to hit it from all angles. So there's a lot to unpack there. I completely agree. A lot of guys and gals are missing like that, the backside of a lateral deltoid or shoulder muscle. Some people talk about there are 9 divisions of the deltoid. There's 3 main ones: the front, the middle, and the back, or anterior, posterior, if you want to be fancy. But yeah, a lot of people will be missing that spot between the posterior delt, which is on people who do proper back training, especially upper back training, usually get a lot of stimulation. But everybody just does traditional lateral raises, which we'll talk about. And then, front raises, possibly not. I think we've talked about that before. But I do like, it's almost like a Y raise, which is something I will bring up later, in that the angle of pull, you're actually getting, the rear delt's going to have to stabilize a lot more. So you'll get some blood in there. The front delt will have to stabilize a bit more. Now you're not raising your arms so high where the front delt really has to stabilize, but you are shifting that focus to the back of the middle delt, which is awesome. Now, where the pulley is in relationship to your hands at the bottom can change which part of the range of motion you could emphasize. So you sitting will be different than when you're standing, which you've already figured out.
Right.
So if people aren't familiar, we have a lengthened position where it's hardest at the bottom when the muscle's stretched, the mid-range position, which is where we're strongest at. And then you have the shortened position, which in a raise would be your arms are up. As the pulley itself, so not the handle, but where the actual pulley leaves the machine, the lower that is in relationship to your hands in the bottom, it emphasizes more of the lengthened position. So by you sitting, you're actually raising that difference up. So you're making it almost more of a mid-range position. Does that make sense?
Agreed. At the same time, I think we can both agree that the fact that the cables cross versus if they didn't, or they were just dumbbells, does add a little bit of that, a little bit more tension in that bottom position.
Yeah, the resistance profile is significantly better. I think cables are vastly superior.
So do I. I hate to admit it,
raises.
But I agree. It's almost painful to admit, because I really want to go back to, or I want to stay with that old school free weight mentality as much as I can. But the reality is it's just not there, which is another reason that I like this exercise as an opener. Okay. And I like this movement to be very, very deliberate. It's not an exercise, at least I don't use it as an exercise as kind of a growth set, in the team skip training protocol. I use it as an opener. And it's more of a higher rep, very controlled, very deliberate type of movement. Sometimes I'll even hold the top position just to make it that much more. I've actually done, I call them 1 1.25 reps, where it's up to the top, it's down a quarter, and it's back up, just to add that, just a bunch of blood before I get to maybe the next movement is a compound movement, which I'll get to in a minute. Or it's even heavier side or side laterals with dumbbells, with more of a focus on moving a little bit more weight. But this to me is a very, very deliberate almost like a pec deck squeeze. And I've said before, my openers, I look at them as kind of stretch and squeeze exercises, more isolative, get the blood in there, get the muscle prepared for those heavier or arguably more intense sets that are going to follow.
And as an opener, it's great though, because what do I always harp on? The importance of shoulder blade or scapula upward rotation where you're clearing space. So because it's a different, arm angle, you are encouraging that proper shoulder blade motion. So that makes a hell of a lot of sense as an opener. I mean, you could also flip it into it as a finisher, but yeah, I agree. This is not a max load exercise, but it's a lot of, blood, a lot of mind to muscle connection, pump and squeeze. Now, we just broke a lot of hearts saying cables are vastly superior to dumbbells, especially for garage gym trainers. So I will throw a bone to them. It's a little bit of a tangent if you're okay with that.
Yeah, sure.
But your how you do your rep tempo could give you some variation with a home gym. So if you're doing dumbbell laterals and you go super slow in the bottom and hold it at the top, you're going to make it hardest at the top. So that's your shortened position. If you explode from the bottom, you're generating momentum. So it's going to be harder at the bottom. So just because we said cables are superior, which I strongly believe they are, if you're stuck at home, all is not lost, right? And now you could get like home cable machines, like add-ons to your squat rack pretty easily. But rep tempo or doing that hold at the top will totally change the movement. So there's a lot of variation you could do even with this movement, whether you're seated versus standing. That's going to change that pulley starting point in relationship to your hands. Like, yeah, there's a lot to like with this movement. And I've never personally done this specifically. So next, if my shoulder will allow me to do it, that's a maybe. But if it does, I will definitely give this a go.
Nice. And just to point out for the viewers, you do have to have a specific pulley system. You can't use a cable crossover. It isn't going to work, because you'll notice too that I'm back and away from the pulley. I'm not sitting in between the pulleys. I'm back and away. So there's not only the side pull, but it's actually pulling from the front as well. And I want to point this out too. It doesn't necessarily, and you touched on this, it doesn't necessarily need to be seated. If those pulleys came up high enough, you can do them standing. So it's just a matter of what that angle is between the shoulder and the actual pulley. So, and I would argue this, if you bring the pulley up still almost even, almost to the point of being even with the shoulder, done correctly, you'll have a little bit more rear delt involvement. Yeah. But if you're still pulling up and away versus straight back, you have that, is it external at that point? External rotation?
So if you're going here to here?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yep. So you had that external rotation. There's still a lot of side delt. And my best advice is this: feel it out. You might think in your brain, oh, that's a rear delt move. But you know what? I still to this day, even with dumbbells, the old school bent over dumbbell lateral where the hands are neutral, an awful lot of the rear part of the side delt in there until you rotate kind of Dusty Hanshaw style. He was one of the first ones, I think, to really get into that neutral grip and stay in that bottom half or 1/3 of the position, where he's like, you know what? I'm going to try to really lock into this rear delt. So that change in hand position, which obviously reflects the rotation at the shoulder, is huge for the shift of stress between, well, pretty much all the delt heads, but for the topic that we're talking about, between the side delt and the rear delt. How you're going to distribute that stress, that shoulder rotation is huge. We're on the same page for number one. You only got two more to shoot me down.
Yeah.
And you're going to get me on this one because it's going to come to the alternating one. And I don't want to jump to the second one yet if you still have thoughts on the first one.
No, I mean, I think that's pretty solid. You could also play with how high you're bringing your hands up at the end position. So almost like a Y raise. So like this could be like the general foundation movement, and you could tweak it from here. So have fun with it. Like, yeah, I would classify this like for me, I do pump sets versus loading sets, like meat and potatoes versus finishers or pump sets. Like this would be a great opportunity to give you all these different offshoots to play around with. So you've done your meat and potatoes, you've done your progressive overload, have fun with stuff, see how tweaking it slightly here or there, whether how much you're rotating, the cable starting position, sitting, standing, how far away you are from the machine, like that'll change the angle of the cable, which will change resistance profiles. Like, yeah, there's a hell of a lot you could do with this. And I think that would be a lot of fun. So I'm definitely going to be experimenting.
Good deal. Number 2, the dumbbell upright row. You might not disagree with the actual exercise. Some people will because they just don't like upright rows. I didn't until I experimented and played around not only with the dumbbells, but with the alternating option. And I know you are not a fan, and that's cool because it's a matter of preference. I totally get it.
Yeah.
The reason that I like the dumbbell upright row in my style over essentially the traditional version is there's 2 main reasons. Number 1, the dumbbells allow you to get out of that fixed wrist position that quite frankly isn't typically terribly comfortable for most people, to the point where if you use an easy curl bar, sometimes that can help on the wrist too. But there's a lot of stress there. And I've played around with it. I've tried leaning into a high incline, leaning over a little bit like a high, I want to say a high barbell row, but that type of angle. And I can't get away from that front. And I don't want front delt. If I want front delt stress, I'm going to do a high incline dumbbell press or a front overhead press, something to that effect, neutral grip, machine overhead press, things like that. And again, it's a matter of preference. What I feel most for front delts might not be what someone else with wider, better developed delts has, or even wider clavicles for that matter. It depends a lot on structure as well. But it's number 1, it's primarily because of the being able to switch and control the wrist position. But number 2, I can pull them wider. I don't pull them up in front of me. The best way to explain it, or the best cue I can think of, is I'm pulling my hands up underneath my armpit. So it's almost like a V. I'm kind of thinking V from the top of my quad up and out this way. But I cannot, and I don't know if it's because I'm narrow as hell, or if it's just not in my physical capability to feel them both when I do them both at the same time. When I do one at a time and I alternate, I can get a better contraction. It's much the same reason that I do this with back sometimes, especially for rowing. I can get a better contraction doing one side at a time. And obviously you don't have to alternate them. If you're not a fan of alternating because it's going to rest in the bottom position. And I get it. I understand why people think that. My defense to that has always been, try it first. A dumbbell curl, I totally get it. But if you're willing to do lunges and you're like, okay, there's still a good movement, at least give the shoulder, like this upright dumbbell row, an alternating, I don't want to say choice, but an alternating, try it. Just try it. And if you don't like it, do, one side at a time. That's fine. But there's going to be a better contraction. And try doing both of them, pulling it a V. It's just an awkward type of movement. And I would say this, another reason that I think that it's more difficult to do them both at the same time is there's not only an upward pull, but there's almost a slight backward pull at the same time. And to get both sides to do that at the same time, it just doesn't feel natural. It feels more awkward to me. So, but a great movement. I've had people watch the show and come back to me, and I haven't even mentioned this exercise, but Chris will put a short B-roll clip of me doing alternating dumbbell rows, and they're like, man, I saw you do that for a few seconds during the show, and I tried them. Oh my goodness, they're awesome. I appreciate it. I just picked that up. And I've had a few people reach out to me since we started, 10 shows, saying that they nice. Like that movement, they feel it. Your thoughts on that movement?
Oh, there's a lot to unpack. Okay, I took some notes. So Let's do the elephant in the room, which is upright rows get a lot of hate, and deservedly so, if you are somebody with shoulder issues. So like myself, there's no way I'm doing that. So how do I say this? So if you have bad shoulders like myself, the traditional barbell upright row is a terrible idea. That would be job security for me in the office as a performance chiropractor, because we know when you're in that position, you're getting your arms above 90 degrees. If you have, now, yes, it is a lazy man's diagnosis, but you have shoulder impingement syndrome, that will directly contribute, which is why once I tore my shoulder the first time, I had to ditch them. Prior to that, I actually really liked them because I get a wicked trap and deltoid pump from them. But that is a traditional barbell. The easy bar would be better. Dumbbells would be best if you're somebody with shoulder, and you're not going, because you're going so heavy and you're challenging it and you're doing that wide position. You're not doing them standard, because in office, this test here is called Hawkins-Kennedy test. It is a test for impingement syndrome. And if that is painful, again, lazy man's diagnosis, that's for another topic for another day.
But they don't need to go above. The upper arm doesn't need to go above 90.
Correct.
You'll see me doing them there. I don't go above 90.
Yeah, how you're doing them is great. The traditional upright rows, no. So I like how you're doing them, because when you first messaged me, I'm going to do an upright row, I was like, okay, we're gonna butt heads quite a bit. Yeah. So, and you could try and do dumbbells bilateral at the same time. Unilateral, we've talked about several times. You're getting a better contraction because you get better mind to muscle connection with better motor unit control. You're able to have a little bit of body English, so you're able to find the mechanics that create space in your shoulder. And you're not going excessively high. You're also adding some external rotation at the end, which again would help clear space. So this went way, once you sent me the video, it went way differently than what I expected. I was expecting to just tear you up left and right and say, well, actually, and then send you a check because it's job security for me.
Right, exactly.
In the mail. Yeah. But how you're doing them, great. And there's a few other variations, like Chris Duffin has a cool variation of an upright row that most people could handle, because you have like a band or a chain with a dumbbell in between. So you have a lot of that freedom. You're not in that fixed position. If somebody has wrist pain, get away from the barbell. The easy bar is better, but a dumbbell would be better. And you would also widen your hands a little bit, so you're not in this crazy impinged position. You also have
the rotate bar, the green rotate bars with the swivel handles.
I've never used that for an upright row, but I could see that could be potential with a cable. Yeah, that's a potential. I never thought of that. Yeah, so that's a potential. And then you're going to get a lot of trap with it. Great, right? I mean, as guys, can we really have too big of traps?
Right.
Females might not want to have that, boat neck appearance going on. But again, you could play around with how high you're pulling, the angle. So yeah, I'm actually going to say, if I have to smash or pass already, I would actually shockingly smash on just only this upright row variation. Normally I would say, don't do them. Now, if you have healthy shoulders, you probably could throw everything I said out, but if you want to do this, remember, Skip's been training longer than I've been alive, folks. So let's put it in perspective. You're going to have to think about longevity in the sports and risk to reward ratios.
Fair enough. And I want to add this with this exercise, because I think it's important. Even though I'm using it primarily as a side delt move, one of the reasons I like this exercise is it uses the entire shoulder complex, like you say, into the traps, into the rhomboids, rear delts. There's a lot going on there. So when I use it, it's not always, but usually it's kind of and I hate to use this word because I don't have finishers, but it's kind of a very, kind of a very compound exercise is how I treat it. So if it's not my last exercise, it's probably my second to the last exercise. And for the same reason that I want to make sure I'm very, very warm all through my entire shoulder complex before I would go into this movement, because maybe it wouldn't feel as good if I just opened with them or jumped right in and tried to warm up with them. So I think it's a great movement. I think it covers a lot of the shoulder complex, and it's even though I'm considering it, and I consider the vast majority of the work to be primarily side delt focused, there's a lot going on there versus, say, the cable side lateral, which is far more isolative. So that takes me to number 3 then, and that is this one. I don't want to say I'm cheating, but I'm changing the rules. It's not one exercise, it's 2. It's a superset. And I'm not going to dig into the details of the rear machine lateral all that much, because a rear machine lateral is a rear machine lateral. It is I am using a neutral grip. We talked about weenus and vagina. So, the arms are very straight. I'm focused on elbow position. I don't care as much about the finish position as I do the first, 2/3 or 3/4 of the stretch position. But what I do is I do that exercise first, and then I go with this exercise here that you're putting up. And that is, I don't know what to call it. If I had a logbook, I'd probably have to name it something, but it's essentially a very high angle, under grip, shoulder width, barbell row or cable row with the elbows along your sides, basically scraping your sides, if you will. And I use the rear lateral exercise as kind of a pre-exhaust. It's a little bit more isolative. And then I bring in the surrounding musculature to kind of, I don't know, take the rear delts even further, I guess. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those, you got to try it type of things to feel it. But there's a lot going on there. And because I'm so weak in that position, in the rear delts, and in that rear portion of the side delt, it's a really good combination for me to get a lot of blood in there and fill in what I consider to be almost like a gap or a crack. And I've said for a long time, you will be able to tell. There's one thing about a pro physique that amateur physiques don't have, and that is rear delt development. You're not going to see a pro with shitty rear delts. You're just not going to see it. You might see a pro with weaker legs. You might see a pro with arguably a weaker back, but not rear delts. It's an odd thing that over the years I thought, man, that is so consistent across every pro I've ever seen.
Well, who comes to mind most? Paul Dillette's rear delts were like the biggest muscle in his back. Like his rear delts were bigger than his lats. It was like, what? So like you saw what his body pulled with. So you're doing like a mechanical drop set. You stole my thunder because that's what I chose for mine.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So like, I like it. Before we go to this conversation, I want Chris to throw up the video of you in your red tank top when you're doing your opening movement, but you're just holding the cables, because I'm going to razz you for just a sec.
Oh, the Y raise?
Yep. Gym owners must hate you because you are bending that damn cable over, weakening the attachment where the ball attaches. So you've been responsible for multiple cables breaking over the course of 41 years, or however long you've been training.
Well, the ball is on the back side.
Mm-hmm. But with you bending that cable, it'll still start to weaken that. So when I worked in when I was the weight room manager, when people would do that repetitively, it would start to wear away. It would start to break. I
never knew that. Yep. Never knew that.
So PSA, if you like your gym owner where you train, don't do what Skip's doing on screen.
Hey, listen, if you want better rear delt development, screw that guy. Pick your poison. The guy can like me, or I can get better rear delts or side delts out of it.
That's funny. So you're to make sure I understand you're doing like the reverse pec deck, and then you're going straight to this kind of like upright rowish kind of thing.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a mechanical drop set. Love it. Yeah. Cause you could, I like mechanical drop sets. They are, I wouldn't say they're for beginners, right? Cause you just need to learn how to train, but when you've been doing it as long and you want to extend the set, I think mechanical drop sets are awesome. Plus they're just a lot of fun. Right. I think mechanical drop sets to me personally make more sense than a traditional drop set, but that's just opinion. That's not fact. That's not research. But your hand position when you're doing that movement will absolutely change the emphasis of rear delt.
Well, and the other option is because sometimes I will use a hammer shrug machine with a neutral grip
Yeah.
as well. Phil Viz used to do bent over rows on it, and I tried that. It's not bad, but this movement is very comfortable with this movement. That hammer strength shrug machine is it's a very good movement to replace or to use in place of the low cable pulley. But I don't have a hammer shrug machine in my smaller garage style gym, which takes me into this. Oh, I want to add one more thing. I also don't go real heavy on this exercise. I almost kind of want to hold and I hate to use this, but peak contraction type. I want to make sure that there's a good contraction in my side or in my rear delts, even though there's a lot going on between the shoulder blades, the traps, the rhomboids, and everything else. I feel like if I go too heavy, I train back the day before. I'm not there to train back. I'm just using the musculature of the back kind of as a supporting cast to hit my rear delts a little bit harder. So that brings me to the point of the anatomical, whether this is anatomically correct and based on the position, you touched on this, based on the position of the grip, which changes the rotation at the shoulder. I see the under grip, or arguably the neutral grip, far superior to, say, an overhand grip for the same movement. So can you touch on the anatomy? Number one, shoot me down. Number two, if I am right, why is that based on the anatomy?
Here's your deltoid, folks. There's 3 heads that are distinguished in anatomy. Some folks will say there's up to 9. So here's your rear delt. It goes from the spine of your scapula, aka your shoulder blade, and they all attach to the side of your humerus, aka your upper arm bone. There's your middle delt, right? And then there's your front. The front delt is the one that, let me pull this away. Oh, shoot, I can't. Interesting. All right, let me try this. Deltoid. So, well, you could kind of see through there. Sorry, folks, but the front of the shoulder, the deltoid attaches to the outer third of your collarbone, and it's the only one that really directly attaches to that. So arm position will matter. So it does change things. So the rear delt is a good external, so it extends the shoulder. It's called horizontal abduction, i.e. you're on a pec deck, you're bringing your arms back behind you, and it externally rotates the shoulder. So a neutral or underhand grip, according to a study from Brad Schoenfeld, and remember, yes, we talked about his research and some of them I wasn't too keen on. The dude is still a legend and one of the GOATs. He's amazing. That he looked at this is off the top of my head. He looked at a neutral grip significantly increased rear delt recruitment compared to an overhand grip, aka pronated. So you are 100% correct, and a lot of it is the line of fibers, the angle of the shoulder based on your hand, and the fact that one of its job is to externally rotate the shoulder. That's why a lot of people, this is going to surprise people, I really like face pulls if you do them in a very particular way. We could cover that another day, but I actually really like a face pull because you're getting a fully shortened rear delt. Now, similar to the upright row combination that you showed, and I'll quit sharing my screen. There's a lot going on. You're getting trapped. It's almost like a upright Kelso shrug almost, right? So it's like a combination of like a drag curl and a Kelso shrug.
Right.
So we need to name this after you now. That's what that means. The skip
branding is everything.
Skip shrug. Yeah. 100%.
Skip loading. Skip is awesome.
Yeah.
Skip. I'm trying to think of make up new shit.
Yeah. So, you're going to be getting a lot of trap. You're going to be a lot of rhomboid, but as a finisher or part of the mechanical drop set to extend the set, I think it's viable. And
that's the reason for the combination. I think as a standalone, you're getting rear delts much like you would get on a neutral grip. I don't know, barbell row. It's probably not much different, but with that pre-exhaust, nailing it and hitting it and isolating it and then jumping straight into the more compound exercise, I think is beneficial.
And again, this stuff is not for beginners, maybe for intermediates, right? Like you just need to learn how to train and get stronger and progressive overload. But when you do need to get the scalpel out or the sniper rifle. Everybody wants to jump straight to the sniper rifle or scalpel. Like, I don't think you should even consider that for a minimum of 5 years.
Well, you may end up that when you're starting that you're going to have great delts anyway, and you don't have to do something like this.
Exactly.
After 40 years, you're not going to go, you know what? In 40 years, I should have better delts than this.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell's going on?
Yep. But yeah, no. I surprisingly liked everything you showed, minus you destroying gym cables left and right for 40 years.
Now, next time I grab them, this is what I'm going to think. Wonder if that thing is going to slip, because it gets real Barbie, like barbed. You know, there's frayed cable in there.
Starting to fray. Yep.
Now, here's the catch that might save me is it's not a heavy movement. So, I mean, we're not talking about a lot of weight here. I mean, it is a cable side lateral. So it's not like I have, 120 pounds on there that's going to be pulling a lot. But I get what you're saying. I never would have thought of that.
Remember, I owned a training studio based out of my garage. So like, let's pump the brakes. It wasn't massive, but that cable machine's actually in my office. I'm very proud of that. I paid a ton of money to ship it just because I had trained thousands and thousands of people on it. So like, it makes me happy. It was not financially smart, but you better believe I have protected that damn cable to where I'm proud in 10 years. I'm on the original cables, but I'm maintaining it. I never let anybody twist it. But when I was the weight room manager at YMCA, we would have to go through cables all the time. And that was a YMCA. That was not a hardcore bodybuilding gym.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I'm going to say one more thing before I hand it off to you, and that is this. I heard the other day, it was said that, and I'm not picking on the person who said it, obviously very well respected and love the guy, but it's a common theme, I think sometimes, and that is, it was said, and I'm paraphrasing, well, for rear delts, you just do like rear laterals or dumbbell laterals. And, if your rear delts don't grow, they're not going to grow anyway. Here's the part I disagree with. I think that as an industry, we've kind of come to accept that rear delt training is bent over laterals with dumbbells or reverse machine flies. And we kind of just moved on from that. Like, we've just accepted it and left it alone. I'm going to go so far as to say that I think it's possible that in the next, 3 to 5 years, that the industry and trainers start to look at rear delt training as not only more of a priority, but more nuanced than we've, I guess, than we have considered it before. Point is I think that we're in a phase now, because I'm starting to hear more trainers, Coach Kassem, Brad Schoenfeld, things where they're looking at studies and they're playing with this position and playing with, cables more. And there might be something there. I think it's very possible.
Yeah. And again, you should be getting rear delt in any upper back movement if you're pulling the elbows back wide enough or far back enough. So shameless plug, watch our elbow position episode if you don't know what the hell we're talking about. But outside of Paul Dillette, like, has there been anybody where you're like, your rear delts are too big in relationship to your body?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So now, well, no, actually we'll save it to when I show mine. Cause there's anytime you're getting shoulder extension, you're getting your rear delt, but there is a specific arm angle I have found over years that if people have a hard time connecting to their rear delt and feeling it work, that I think it'll help solve that issue. But yeah, in order to get your elbow behind your torso, the rear delt has to be involved.
Yep. Take it and run with it then.
Okay, so here are mine. We're going to start with rear delts with a mechanical drop set. So mechanical drop sets, they're similar to a drop set, but instead of changing weight, you use the same weights and you just change the movement and make it easier. So you have the mechanical advantage, AKA that's why it's called a mechanical drop set. So on the screen is a great combo that I'm combining with like a chest supported, I guess, rear delt fly into John Meadows' super heavy dumbbell flies, which every time I post that movement, it's hilarious. 90% of people trash the movement, say it's the dumbest thing ever. And then I just say, well, have you ever tried it? And then the 10% of people who love it are like, I've actually done it and I love that movement. So admittedly,
my arm isn't getting so remember, we focus on the elbows. The elbow isn't getting as high back as I would if this was like a pure isolation incline chest supported, rear delt fly. But I'm going heavy, right? So you're fighting to get as high as you can. How I typically program it is whatever reps you get with the first movement, when you go into John Meadows heavy dumbbell swings, you have to double that, which is brutal. I do like a 45 degree, as you see on the screen, upper arm angle for helping people connect to the rear delt. It just lines up with the angles of the fibers that you, so in case people missed it, let me show the app one more time and you'll see what I'm talking about. So one more time. Like that's a 45 degree, right? So if my arm is parallel with that, that'll help a lot of people feel it for the first time ever. So that's why I like that, because you're following the line of pull. People will argue, is the line of pull a real thing, a fake thing? I like the line of pull stuff. It just makes sense to me. Yes, it's going to fire no matter what, but I really like that. So
I think it's nonsensical to go against the
I think it's people wanting to sound smarter than they are or be contrarian to stay relevant.
Well, and I think just using the rear delt machine with the typical, grip, that alone is what got me thinking. That is not in line with how the rear delt attaches to the scapula. So
correct.
If your hands are level with your shoulders or even slightly higher, you're going to get more side delt. I argue that if you're going to err on one side or the other, have the seat higher so that your arms or your hands are actually below the shoulder, so that pull, it's still not in line perfectly with the angle, but it's arguably better because the hands are below shoulder level. So I think cables would be superior.
Yeah. And for that movement, if you really want to isolate, like we talked about in that episode, you're keeping your shoulder blades protracted, AKA out wide, so you're not retracting. So in this movement, the first movement, going back to mechanical drop set, yes, I am getting shoulder blade retraction. So yes, traps and rhomboids are involved, but it's brutal on the rear delt. If you've never felt your rear delt contract before, you'll feel it. You go until I just had it in my mind when we filmed this, I had to get 12 reps with the first movement. So I did 12. And then I go straight into John Meadows heavy dumbbell swings. That it is key. You keep your shoulder blades wide or protracted, and then you're fighting to go as wide as you can. Now, yes, technically I should actually have my palms neutral based on the research I just said. This is a very old video. So this is from several years ago. So I have updated it saying, yes, I want the almost like neutral hammer grip when you're now doing John Meadows heavy dumbbell swings. But at the same time, I actually kind of like the overhand too, because it's a hell of a lot harder to decelerate the dumbbells in a wider position. So I can make a case for both. So I would recommend doing what you feel best at. So in the range of motion isn't a ton, but you're not retracting your shoulder blades. You notice my shoulder blades are staying wide. I'm going as wide as I can, but you have to fight to decelerate. So it is a lengthened position movement. And, I'll do these as a standalone, the heavy dumbbell swings, where it might be a set of 20 with the 100-pound dumbbells, brutal. Or I might go, I'm only going to do 60s, but I have to hit 50 continuous reps. At the end, you are grunting and growing. You're spitting up like Skip did earlier. You're choking, you're groaning, and you're only moving a few inches. But if the dumbbells touch, the rep doesn't count. It's brutal, and you will be incredibly sore. We've talked about whether soreness or not is indicative of muscle growth, but it is a lengthened position movement that would be novel. It is brutal. So I like both movements standalone, and I like it as a mechanical drop set, kind of like what you did. I would say these are both two viable options as a standalone, where your mechanical drop set, the shrug thing, as a standalone, maybe,
Sure.
maybe not, probably
Agreed.
not. But that's what I really like for that.
Question about the anatomical position, and that is this. You stated to have the protraction the entire time while doing the rear laterals. So here's my question. Would it necessarily be bad if you had retraction the entire time? The reason that I ask is this. I don't know, in my brain anyway, when I try to process this, whether it matters if you're fully protracted the whole time or you're fully retracted, but that you're not going back and forth. You're not going from protraction to retraction. I look at it as, okay, let's say I'm retracted the entire time. Stability, it's stable. It's not really doing, the rhomboids and the middle traps aren't really doing work other than stabilizing. They're not moving the way. Yeah. Is there something there, or are you like, nah, it needs to be protracted?
So it would change moment arm slightly, but I think what you said is most important is just do one or the other.
Well, the other reason is it seems that there would be, because I'm narrow. I will get a better stretched position. I'll feel more tension in the stretched position if I stay retracted the whole time. That's why I bring it up.
So for you, I could say that I can't say like black or white, yes or no.
Yeah, I mean individual too.
Yeah. I think it'd be individual, but with your training experience, I would trust you way more than say a newbie with 2 or 3 years.
Right.
Because also that is an isometric. That's an extended isometric. But we've talked about, yes, you're narrow as a Ken doll. That will give you some stability and probably increase the stretch slightly more compared to me. The protracted is what just blasts me. Also, it's weird because I'm a chiropractor. I do not have the world's best posture, which is an oxymoron because I'm a chiropractor. But guess what? I don't do bullshit line drawings and posture breakdown in office. Nails on a chalkboard. But I think, play around with both. Stick to one or the other. There's going to be pros and cons to each. So once again, experiment, see what you like. I would recommend filming yourself though, because people will be like, oh, no, I was protracted all the time. Like, no, you were not. So film yourself, especially when you want to get a detail like that done. And remember, progressive overload still matters the most, but we are bodybuilders. We're trying to make a lightweight feel as heavy as possible and target a muscle. So I used to be like, oh yeah, I'm not protracting at all. I actually lowered my load quite a bit on the reverse pec deck because I thought I wasn't retracting. I was, so I dropped about 30 pounds, night and day difference. So again, it's that balancing act of beat the logbook, but make sure you're still getting that sensation. And sensation is not the right word, but you're still getting the main muscles that you're wanting to target as the primary mover.
I don't know if you see the chair I'm sitting in, but it's a custom chair. I couldn't order this chair stock. I had to actually reach out to the company and have them make it more narrow so that I can look a little wider in the video. I'm totally fucking around.
I was like, are you yeah. I was like, man.
If it were a regular chair, the side of the chair would be out here. So I'm like, I gotta look a little wider on camera. Anyway.
I need to do that then. Yeah, I need to get a super narrow. Yeah. So there's that. For laterals, I love wrist cuff cable laterals or Y raises and play around with the angle. There's so much shit you could do. I have a bad wrist. Everybody knows that, or you should know this because we went over my depressing injury history. This is why I'm a chiropractor. I saw 32 doctors for it. 5 people said I was making it up for attention. That was really great healthcare help.
I'm sure that felt awesome to hear.
Yes. I've gone to like a forensic psychologist about blah, blah, blah. So wrist cuffs are kind of mandatory for me. Even without the wrist issues I have, I still like wrist cuff laterals. I think a lot of people will be pleasantly surprised, and you don't need to break the bank. I use $10 ones off Amazon. I mean, shoot, I think they're on my Amazon list. I don't care where you get them from. However, whenever you're doing a wrist cuff, you want to be squeezing your fist. So you could squeeze a lacrosse ball. That's a little big. I just roll up my wrist strap since I'm not going to use them since I'm using wrist cuffs, and I squeeze that the entire time. That's called the principle of irradiation. Keeping tension here helps stabilize the entire limb, and it leads to a little bit better output. Because remember, what I always say is output. And I mean, stability leads for better output potential. By output, I mean intensity. We're bodybuilders. Intensity means proximity to failure. More output means better gains with a Z. So stability to output potential, output to gains. So that's a big one. It'll also, people have like weird little shoulder or elbow pain when they're doing it. That seems to go away because you're stabilizing stuff. And you could do, kind of like with your first one I already talked about, there's a million variations. I really like lying on a flat bench. You could also incline the bench. You could also doing it standing, one arm or two arms. You could do it standing behind the back. I like Y raises. I think Y raises, which you were kind of doing, are vastly underutilized in bodybuilding because, yes, you're getting middle delt primarily, but the front and rear delt has to stabilize. You're getting that all important upward rotation. The serratus interiors having to be involved, the lower traps having to be involved. You're also getting that middle delt fully shortened by going up and above, right? So I think Y raises are vastly underrated. You could do it standing. You could do it on an incline bench. You could do it on a flat bench. Play with the angles, but wrist cuff lateral Y raise variations are my favorite way to train delts. For me, they just grow like crazy with clients or patients or whatever words you want to use over the years. They grow like crazy, and there's a million variations. But like we've talked about, you're trying to push your elbows as wide away from you as possible. So we're not leading with the trap, right? Yes, you will feel trap tension. It's supposed to, but you don't want to be leading with the trap. You want to be leading with the delt.
Dr. Marv over here doing his Dr. Seuss. You could do it in a car. You could do it in a bar. You could do it eating green eggs and ham.
And then, you can do dumbbell Y raises, like a chest supported dumbbell Y raise is brutal. It is. If you've never done chest supported laterals or Y raises, good God. Now, I've said it before, but I want to make sure if this is your first time tuning in. I am a big fan, and now this will lead a gap in your physique. So that's why Skip was on that. I'm going to turn on the side. My elbow's going to be bent. So yes, your arm would be straight, but I am a big fan of laterals, not directly out to your side, but about 20 to 30 degrees. This is called scaption plane. My upper arm, AKA my humerus, is parallel to my shoulder blade, AKA my scapula. That allows you to get your rotator cuff to fully stabilize the shoulder joint, which will allow for better output potential. Now, you could also change the angle, how much rotation is in your shoulder versus not. A neutral lateral raise and scaption plane will be a lot more middle delt than if you internally rotate. So like you could play around with that. If you have shoulder issues like myself, not only do I do scaption plane, I rotate my thumbs up slightly, but I also lean slightly forward. So my middle delt's still on top, not my front delt, but there will be that little bit of a gap, right? So that's why then behind the back, or the variation that you showed that started this conversation, would be super helpful to fill in that gap that people might not get. Now, I don't really have to worry about that because that is my God's gift relative to me. So everybody pump the brakes, but relative
before
to me,
they go after you.
Yes. Relative to my physique, shoulders are my God's gift, right? It's the one thing that I do 2 or maybe 3 sets a week. That was even before I fucked up both shoulders, right? Like I had no chest, like negative chest in college undergrad, and just Dwight Howard size shoulder blades, basketball reference. Like I looked like him. It was a weird look. Like I was very self-conscious, horrible body dysmorphia, blah, blah, blah. Like therapy required muscle body dysmorphia. It was bad. I don't have to worry about that with that rear
I wish
part
I
of the
had
middle
that
delt.
problem because it's the one.
We
the
always
one
want
muscle
with the
group.
one thing that people don't have.
No, grass
correct.
is always greener. Grass is always greener. But I
Because
just
then
think,
I see your chest and I go, fuck you, Skip. So
well, that's because my shoulders are so weak that the chest has to do everything. That's all. I do side laterals, get a pump in my chest.
Yeah. And then, do you have any comments on that before I just give my last one real quick?
No, we're on the same page. Yeah.
Nice. Front delts, I like pressing. And then, people are gonna be really sad. I personally program a hell of a lot more machine than free weights because it's just a pain in the ass to get going unless you're going to have somebody hand them to you. However, to help people with my bad shoulder, you'll see on screen, but also with patients or clients, a lot of people actually want us like a very slight decline from straight up and down. So with the machine that you're seeing, I have a foam roller behind me, so that's pushing my butt forward. So it's almost as I'm doing a super steep incline.
Yeah, high incline.
Creating space in the shoulder. It feels great on me. I can't overhead press anymore, but I'm that weird person where my overhead pressing strength is significantly greater than my flat pressing strength. I mean, this is with 2 torn shoulders, and I'm still gym pinning it. Again, relative, right? Relative.
Yeah.
Promo code in my bio link. But like that bringing this butt forward, similar to like doing a dumbbell press, I want one notch past 90. I think that is vastly superior. And then personally, the hammer, the neutral grip, again, it allows me to get out here a little bit more elbow tuck position. Just always made sense. One, for the line of force, but two, creating space in the shoulder.
I would argue that even those people who can overhead press directly overhead would benefit with a high incline even more.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I understand that it depends on structure, and there are some who can just sit on an old school overhead free weight press and just press all day.
So jealous.
But I know, right? But at the same time, I still think anatomically, biomechanically, they would still benefit more from a high incline press, which is another reason why I prefer a short back seated overhead press, so that the shoulders can kind of hang over the back a little bit, versus one that is as high as your head and you can't even get your head back. That type of long bench where you can't even get your head behind the bench,
that's why you have to recline.
Exactly. You really have I have no choice. I guess I can't speak for everybody else, but I have no choice. I'd much rather be able to get my shoulders towards the top of that to let them kind of hang over. I've done it on, I have done overhead presses on a preacher curl where instead of sitting on it like you would do preacher curls, you turn around and you use the preacher curl. Now you can't do it with a machine, like a weight stack machine, but you can for a regular seated barbell preacher curl bench. And it works great because you can get your shoulders over the top and your head can be behind the support. And you can control that angle because you can slide your ass out a little bit more, or you can slide it in. I picked that up basically because I first started using the reverse preacher or the preacher curl turned around for overhead tricep extensions. For that reason, I could change the angle anytime I wanted to. And then I thought, wait a minute, I could do this with shoulder pressing. When you train in a gym that is more limited, I mean, I've had, 41 years. My favorite gym ever was Better Bodies, 48,000 square feet in Aurora, Colorado. It literally had everything, 48,000 square feet. It was just absolutely insane. But that was only for 7-8 years while I lived in Aurora before I was able to graduate out of ghetto Aurora and into up to Evergreen. But anyway, like today, I have access to Raw. I could train at Raw with their incredible, selection of equipment. But I prefer the garage style. And with that garage style, you have limited equipment. So you're going to be thinking outside of the box more. I'm doing preacher curls after I put a pad over the platform of the Gen 1 Icarian hack squat. There are things that I do that people go, oh shit, that I wouldn't even have thought of that. But that's 41 years, of training experience that allows you to do that.
That's Dante's getting funky with it. Like, play around.
Exactly.
Like, don't be an idiot. Make sure it makes sense on paper in a vacuum.
Don't just be novel for the sake of being novel.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking the same. I'm like, we could go an hour on this one. Let's go. Let's go.
But anyways, but I like that a lot. Plus, it makes it fun because now you're still doing your meat and potatoes, folks. Like Skip is not saying he's doing all this weird shit. Like you still do the boring stuff. Like hypertrophy coach Joe Bennett, like he talks about. Everybody thinks I do these fancy stuff. It's just how many times do you want me to do a mediocre deadlift or an RDL?
Exactly.
So I'm only going to post the finisher stuff, the cool sequences. That's not what he promotes. That's 10 to maybe 20% of the workout, right? It's I just left out. How many times do you want to watch my mediocre RDL? Like it's not going to get views. I'm not going to get a name. So he has to show that stuff.
Agreed. Was that number 3?
That was.
It takes us into intimate time with Skip and Dr. Marv, I do believe.
Well. Are
we
you
gotta
smashing
smash
or passing? Yeah,
we gotta
easy
smash
there. Easy there, Tiger.
I did this on the last. Like the whole concept of deposit. I'm like, hey, let's get to intimate time. Let's get rolling.
That's how excited he is about the sequence, the intimate time, right?
You take the smasher pass first. I'll follow you.
So you did the minus I'm cursing a lot. Minus messing up the cables, smash that variation, and there's a lot of offshoots. You also did, what else did you do? The mechanical drop set. And then, and then the one arm dumbbell row, man, I'm really impressed you salvaged that movement in my mind, because I was expecting to be absolutely not, unless you lived in the Houston Bay Area, then do it, then come to me and I'll put you back together. So I'm actually going to smash on all three of yours. So kudos.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. And this looks like we're just patting each other on the back. So I apologize to the viewers for that. But the reality is, we're on the same page. Well, you're on the same page with my selections, and I'm on the same page with your selections. I was going to go with the high incline dumbbell press. The only reason that I didn't was I didn't feel like it was unique enough, in the sense that we've talked about how I really like the behind the neck press, in the first episode. So I wanted to try to stay away from it. And I wanted to make sure that I got that combination of the rear lateral in with that upright type of barbell row, because I felt like a lot of people would not have been thinking in that same vein. So I smash on all three too. So we're just smashing each other's shit today, Dr. Marv. Yeah, but it is what it is. Sometimes we're on the same page, and sometimes we're not. So that's the cool part. We're not always just, hey, you're so smart, you're a super genius. So it's a smash all the way around.
Awesome.
Good deal.
I come to school with the tailor on my earlobe.
All right, now I will transition to intimate time with Skip and Dr. Marv. And I believe I am asking the questions.
Yes.
So I just want to give the listeners
a heads up. Got really hot in my office just now. Got really hot in my office.
I much prefer asking them versus answering them. But what we do real quickly is we ask each other 10 questions. We try to be as quick and concise as we can so that we don't, drag it out. But we're trying to give just a little bit of insight to the viewers. I guess a little bit of insight about who we are outside of the industry, outside of the gym, that sort of thing. And then that way you can like us more or you can hate us more. It's up to you. So start with number one. When you met your wife, who showed interest first and how did it play out?
Oh, God. Me. So we actually were back home in San Diego this weekend. We went to where we first met.
Was it at Phil's Barbecue? Phil's Barbecue is the best barbecue in San Diego.
Yeah. Yes, in San Diego, that is true. Yep. So first time she tried to talk to me, I couldn't talk. I was dumbfounded with words. It was weird. So I saw her from across the room and something was like, who is that? She came up to talk to me. I couldn't talk, so she thought I was an asshole. And then we started hanging out together. She said no to a first date at least 10 times, to where I was like, leave the poor woman alone. She finally said yes. We've been together 13 years. She's my best friend. We've had 0 fights in 13 years. It's kind of disgusting. We're getting married next year finally.
That's awesome. I like that. And that feeling of and being uncomfortable.
I've never had that ever.
Yeah. That's cool. That's telling. That's telling. Yep. Number 2, what song takes you back to the most fun or memorable period in your life?
Oh, man. Well, my go-to song that I listen before every podcast, every time I table for work or present, is How You Like Me Now from The Heavy. I don't know where that started. That might have started during my triathlon days, but that is like my go-to song. So yeah, right before we hopped on, every podcast I listen to it, every time I speak or present or give a seminar, or every time I go try and, knock on somebody's door to introduce myself for business purposes, that's my go-to.
I think that's cool because music tends to have that connection in some way, whether it's nostalgic or whether it's motivational or whatever. Yep. So that's why I asked that. Number 3, what was your video game of choice as a teenager?
James Bond, GoldenEye, and N64.
Damn, I don't even know what that is. I'm apparently way older than you. All right, number 4, you have $10,000 in cash. The only stipulation is you can only spend it on something you want, not something you need. And it has to be for you. What do you buy?
Stem cells.
Damn. I was thinking Coke and hookers, but whatever.
Yeah. I might be making a purchase for myself this coming month. That would be a dream. So stay tuned. It's more than $10,000. So.
I got that message. Very nice.
Yep.
And I'll be waiting.
Yep.
Want to see pictures. Number 5, what is a vice that you refuse to give up?
Caffeine. Not even close.
I'm right there with you. Well, that and nicotine. So I guess I have 2. Number 6, cribbage, euchre, pepper, or spades. And it's going to say a lot about your position in the socioeconomic plane. Oh, did you just say spades? You've been to prison, you liar. You said you've never been to jail.
Yep.
It's the lowbrow version of the form. That's funny.
Spades.
That's cool though. Okay,
there's a story behind it, but we'll leave it at that.
And you know what? It's also, in fairness, I'm obviously kidding when I say it's lowbrow. It's but it is a prison game. But it's also demographic. It depends, because a lot of people don't even know what euchre is. I'm from the Midwest, from Michigan. Euchre was huge, and other people are like, "What the hell is euchre?"
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've never played. It's funny. I'm supposed to be learning that on our July 4th trip to my in-laws. They were talking about games. They're like, we're going to play euchre. And I was like, I don't know what the hell that is. But
love it. Love it. Love it. Michigan. It's a Michigan thing. Number 7, an ex approaches you while your wife is out of town. You know, I got to work something in here.
Yeah.
You got to work something in here to see if your wife's watching. Yep. So an ex approaches you while your wife is out of town. No one will ever know if you smash. Do you smash or pass?
Not even considering. It's disgusting. Skip, it is disgusting. My younger me would so disappointed with me.
Right.
I don't
exactly.
like when you so this is TMI. When you asked me hottest woman in the world, I was like, dude, I don't even know. Like, that's pathetic. Oh, I should lose my man card. But it is what it is.
All right, number 8. What was the last thing that happened to you that made you feel old?
I saw pictures of me in San Diego with how gray my hair has become.
Yep. Number 9, were your parents more like Mr. and Mrs. C, or more like the Connors from Roseanne?
I don't know the Mr. and Mrs. C.
I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. C. Howard, Mary, and Cunningham. Basically, the Happy Days family.
I don't really know either show, so they were.
You didn't watch Happy Days?
No.
Oh man!
So I grew up in a very strict, very religious household. So you tell me.
Okay, so it definitely was not the Connors from Roseanne.
Okay.
Fair enough. Okay. Number 10, Jordan or LeBron? Who's the GOAT?
Oh God, not even close.
Jordan.
I know begrudgingly LeBron's the most well-rounded player. I'm a Lakers fan. I'm not a LeBron fan. But it's just like with Tom Brady. Begrudgingly, yes, but I'm not a fan. I'm a Kobe guy. I'll be honest, for starters.
I'm not necessarily not a LeBron fan. I've just seen both play, and Jordan was just, to me, he was just next level. He had that air about him, and everybody in the venue
doesn't complain about his damn shirt sleeves messing up his 3-point shot. Like,
which is true.
Happened, and now, but to his credit, LeBron has never really had a scandal outside of the whole "I'm moving to South Beach" thing. He's been in the limelight his entire life. Like, it's incredible what he has done.
Yeah,
I'm not watching European soccer. Like, I'm a Laker fan. Like, every time he gets hit, it's like he's playing football overseas, rolling on the ground in agony. And I'm like, dude, come on, man.
Yeah. Now, he is older. He's been around for a while. Maybe the aches and pains are legit. I don't know.
Yeah.
So definitely I like the reference to Brady, because really he has been around. He's been around a long time, and he's still bona fide badass. There's no question.
Correct.
I'm not taking anything from the guy. And it's not a generational thing. Like, I don't have any problem with the new kid or the next generation being better than the other generation. That I have no issue with that.
Yep.
All right, let's jump into some questions. I think you have the questions. I don't have them in front of me.
Yeah, let me pull them up. We'll go rapid fire.
Cool.
All right, so ZRZR24. Doing all reps on one side, hit failure, then do the other versus switching back and forth. I see that no different than resting between every rep of a different exercise, constant tension, constant rep movement. I will let you specifically handle this.
Yeah, because this one was, I think, was in reference to
you.
Me talking about those exercises in the last episode or the one before. My only response to that is, have you tried it? And here's the thing. I touched on this earlier in the episode. If you're a fan of, say, like a walking lunge, then, part of my brain is going, well, wait a minute. You can't pick one to fit your narrative and not try another one. Now, I did say, and I admit, something like a alternating dumbbell curl, yeah, you're going to have far less resistance in the bottom position. But when it's something related to, say, back, because that was what I was focused on in the discussion primarily. So like a hammer row where, and just for those who don't know, I'm saying I do 1 rep, 2 reps, 2 reps. I don't do all the reps on one side because I don't feel it's as balanced. I don't want one to be behind the other, and I know obviously I would start with the weak side. That's a given. I understand that. But I can gauge where that failure is and try to balance out that work so much better when it's 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3. And my argument for something like back is there is no rest. Even in the stretched position, there's a lot of tension there. So my argument is it actually increases or can increase intensity because you're keeping the muscles under arguably twice as much time under tension. So here's my bigger point. My point is not to say that I'm right. I want to make that very, very clear. I'm saying it's a preference of mine that if you haven't tried it, try it before you opine, instead of just saying, well, it doesn't seem like it just seems like it would be right. Try it and then come back and say, yeah, it just wasn't as hard. If you do that, cool. I'm totally cool with that. But I think if most people tried it, they'd be like, damn, that's harder than I thought it would be.
Yeah. And I think that was our first ever disagreement, because I don't like how you do it. But again, to each their own. And it's all like semantics at a certain point.
Right.
So yeah.
And I don't do every exercise like that. I think I typically do one in a back workout, but yeah.
Correct. And it's usually towards the end, I would imagine.
Yeah, sometimes it's middle. It just depends because I do want that contraction. Part of the reason I do that is to emphasize I get a better contraction doing one at a time. So it may be more in the middle.
Yeah, because remember, motor unit recruitment. That's why, I'll program unilateral as the final movement. Okay, cool. So I'm going to give a 10,000-foot view on this, and I'll explain why in a second. Mark Ramis, I believe that's a I8R. This is such a valuable show. Thank you for giving blah, blah, blah. Does Dr. Marv have a specific protocol for golfer's elbow? I picked up the general pointers for treating tendons. I just wonder if he has any specific tips. I deal with this issue regularly and is pretty relentless in limiting things. I'm going to give a very brief response why I had recorded an episode with somebody else a while back about a deep dive in this. That hasn't gone anywhere. So I was actually planning on just doing a video of my own in May with a super deep dive. So it is what it is. But tennis elbow, the pain is here, but it is usually a combination of a grip strength issue, a shoulder mobility issue, and or a neck mobility issue. So you've got to kind of assess all three. Tennis elbow, most providers do not like treating because it is so complicated. I actually have a non-surgical orthopedic group here send me all of their plantar fasciitis cases and all their tennis elbow cases because I have such a good track record, because I understand and a lot of bodybuilders or powerlifters or strongman, oh God, if you tell a powerlifter or strongman their grip strength is causing their tennis elbow, they want to choke slam you. So I have to lighten the blow and, what's it called? A compliment sandwich. So work on grip. Make sure, yes, biomechanically, the elbow does need to move. There is a nerve there, but tennis elbow, less than 10% of people actually play tennis. So it's not a really good name, but it is common, especially with lifters. Make sure your shoulder's moving well, make sure your neck's moving well. It is isometrics and eccentrics will shut off pain, but it is something that typically requires a decent amount of physical treatment, whether that's shockwave, dry needling, dry needling with e-stim, flossing, adjustments, stuff like that. So hopefully that gives them a little bit. And then whenever I have the time, yes, I plan to do like a deep dive into common complaints lifters deal with. And I probably get 2 to 5 tennis elbow patients per month coming into the office.
Oh, okay.
And very rarely do they actually play tennis. And then last one from Diesel Dave 5. Do you guys think the need or use of a converging machine or movement necessary for pec development? I will let you go first because I'm sure we're on the same page.
I'm a big fan. I would much rather have a converging machine or a machine that has a converging pattern than I would a typical old school press, especially when it comes to chest pressing. So I won't say that the old school one doesn't have a place or that there's no work being done, but I definitely would take, the hammer strength is a good example. There are many, but that's the most obvious. Decline, wide, hammer strength press is arguably one of my favorite machines, and I think it's highly underrated for chest development. Probably more, in my opinion, than any other chest press that I can think of that hammer strength makes. So
yeah, everybody goes straight to the incline. The decline's where it's at, especially if you have a lagging chest, which we've talked about ad nauseum. Like, I start everybody on a decline hammer if they have access to it, if you have a lagging chest.
And it's funny that if you asked 100 people about that exercise, they may not be on the same page, but we happen to be with that. The other argument that I would say is this, without getting too deep and going down this rabbit hole, but I think that the hammer incline, the traditional hammer incline, is too steep.
It's trash in my opinion.
Yeah, it's too bad that they make a couple different declines. They make the flat, and these are all obviously isolateral, and the incline, it's too bad they don't have an incline that is a lower angle, because I would probably be all over it. And the one out of all of them that I hate is the flat one. It's horrible to me. Cannot say. I would take the incline over the flat.
Oh, the one where you're lying face up?
No, I take that back. Good point. That one I don't have an issue with. It must be a slightly different angle than the one where you're seated straight up. The seated straight up flat, they have one at Armbrust Pro because
they have a regular version and they have a wide version. And I think the wide traditional flat isolateral that Dante, and we've talked about unilateral training, I think we showed on here. I think the wide seated flat hammer is way better than the non-wide one.
Yeah, I don't think the one that I'm thinking of is not the wide. Maybe I haven't used the wide flat. Okay. But the one you lie down on, we used to have 2 of them this is early 2000s at Better Bodies, the giant 48,000 square foot. And I did like that piece. Okay. It felt good. The one that you sit in though, that is almost, you can't even tell whether it's flat or not. You literally have to get on it or check the the little,
because then you have to see where the handle goes.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just an odd, it's not a good feel for me.
I know one of Ron Partlow's Meeting on Emissions, the guy literally changed welded the handle differently on the incline hammer, and it looked money. And even Ron was like, okay, that is a great hammer incline. But he physically had to cut it off and weld it and change it.
Yeah.
But again, every manufacturer has their gems and every manufacturer has their junk. For the most part, hammers, it's impressive. And as a gym owner, that's what you want if you just want to buy it once and never have to worry about it for 50 years.
Exactly, because it will last forever. Yep. That's the thing with the knockoffs. You can get them cheaper. They'll fabricate them for you in I don't know, Croatia, I think it is.
Yeah,
but they don't last.
Yeah, so I was at a bodybuilding show. We'll just say that. And there was a manufacturer there. And I actually took a picture to Ron, sent it to Ron. He's like, that's a Chinese POS. I was like, yep. There was 50 different moving points. Way too cheap. I was like, what is this, 10 grand?
They'll sell them though.
They'll sell them. I was like, oh my goodness gracious.
People will buy them, but they will not last.
Nope. So And then we had one more question we're going to save because it is a deep dive and I don't have my ribcage model. So we will save that for the next episode. So I think that is all the questions we have for today.
Nice. We got to get to getting. This is Skip and Dr. Marv splitting. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell. It should sound a little something like this. And if you didn't like the show, just pretend you did and like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell anyway. We want to hear your questions, feedback, and any ideas you have about future topics in the YouTube comment section. If your question or topic is chosen for the show, you'll go into a separate drawing and we will randomly choose one winner at the end of each month who will receive a 5-pound bag of Team Skip protein from TrueNutrition.com. Be sure to use the TrueNutrition.com link in the closing credits to save 10% on not just Team Skip protein, but every supplement they sell. Not only do I use my Team Skip protein with my clients, but other top prep guys have their clients use my protein because it's that good. Dr. Marv, how could someone reach out to you if they have questions or if they want to work with you?
Most active on Instagram at dr.marvin.saysdc. My office is in the Houston Bay Area. I do telemedicine all over Texas. If you're not in Texas, we could do consults through theeducatedmeathead.com. We could give you all the info. I just can't legally diagnose you. Workout programs, online courses, seminars, that's all on there.
If you have too much skin, go to teamskip.com. You'll find all my contact information there, including Team Skip merch. Notice, they're color coordinated, always color coordinated. Of course, you can follow me on Instagram at Intense Muscle as well. Keep in mind, and this is important, that this is a team of 3, not 2. Chris is the enigma behind the scenes, and he is responsible for all the visuals and graphics. And he also plays a huge role in the creative process. And when I say huge, I mean huge. This project would not work without him. So from all of us, all 3 of us, it's been a business doing pleasure with you. Join us again next week for another episode of Between Two Dumbbells.